Welcome to our latest episode of Once a Lawyer. Today we have with us Pragati Mitta, who is a lawyer turned chef. She completed her undergraduation in history from the renowned St. Stephen's College in 2013 and got a law degree from Campus Law Center, Delhi University in 2016. After working within the Indian legal system for a few years, she switched to what she loved doing most, that is cooking and baking culinary delights. In 2018, she obtained a diploma in Pastry and Bakery Arts from the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City and is currently working as a quality manager at the reputed bakery house, L'Opera. Welcome, Pragati.
Thank you. Thanks, Drishti. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, Pragati. Nice to have you here with us.
Hi, thanks.
Hope you're doing well.
Yes, I'm doing very well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm glad you could give your time to this. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
Okay, so let's start from what we would like to call ground zero, where this all started off, right? So
Sure.
What was it that got you into cooking? As in, did you cook a lot when you were a kid? Was there anyone who incited or induced this passion for food?
Sure. That's actually an interesting question because unlike most other chefs, I'm not going to pretend like I've been cooking since I was in my diapers. I have not. When I was in middle school or so, I got into baking, but it was all very casual. I started cooking for the first time at the age of 18 when I lived away from India for a few months. I did a summer internship in Egypt and I was missing Indian food. And that's when I learned how to cook for the first time, thousands of kilometers away from home. And that's sort of where it began in a very small way. I actually got into cooking in a big way when I was already a lawyer. So this was post 2016, when I was in my first proper legal job. I used to be so stressed all day at work, and then going home in the evening, cooking was my stress buster. And slowly it became what I was looking forward to the most in my entire day, much more so than any of the work I was doing. Which is where I started thinking and I realized that, this is not how I should be thinking about this profession that I've chosen. And there's something very wrong. And then I got more and more into cooking in a very deep way. And that's when the decision was taken, not lightly and not quickly, to leave this very stable profession and become a chef.
Okay, so what was the Egyptian cuisine like?
So Egyptian cuisine, it's a lot of that standard Middle Eastern fare that you're sort of used to. So a lot of hummus and baba ganoush and that kind of thing. There's this one amazing dish that is supposed to be Egypt's national dish. It's called kosheri, and it's actually a mix of khichdi, literally Indian khichdi, and Italian cuisine. Because a little history lesson here. Egypt and India were both colonized by the British.
Correct.
And the British loved Indian food.
Yeah.
So when the same soldiers were in India and in Egypt, they were we want to recreate that dish that we enjoy in our other colony in this one here. And there was also always a very strong Italian influence in Egypt because they were ruled by Romans, right? For centuries and millennia. Yeah. So this very interesting dish was born, which has rice, pasta, dal, literally brown masoor dal, and tomato sauce and fried onions. It tastes way more delicious than it sounds, and it is so good. And I make it for myself all the time.
So was this a talent that was born out of necessity? Was it more like you were there in Egypt and you were like, hey, I want to cook my own food, the things that I'm used to?
Yeah, I mean, that's so beautifully put. That's pretty much exactly how it started. Because I was just, it was something where this was my first time living away from India and I was missing home and I was missing home food. So it was literally born out of necessity, the way you said. So this was pre-smartphone days, right? Mm-hmm. So, I would have to call my mom in India and ask her to send me emails because WhatsApp wasn't a thing then. I was like, you need to send me emails with recipes for super simple Indian food. And my mom would sit and send me these emails and I would use those and hunt for ingredients in the markets of Cairo and cook myself Indian food. And that's where it started. But now I don't do much of Indian cooking because I'm in India. I don't feel the need. So I explore a lot of international cuisines.
That's nice. Okay, so is there anyone else as a cook who you admired and why? Or like someone in your family or someone you watched on TV that basically inspired you?
Sure. So in my family itself, actually, both of my grandmothers were amazing cooks. Like both of them, just lifelong incredible food. It's a great regret of mine that I became a chef after having lost both of my grandmas, or I would definitely have just sat with them and written cookbooks, quite honestly, with their recipes, because that's how incredible they were. But in terms of like on TV and like among celebrity chefs, there's this one chef I really look up to as a chef whose name is Yotam Ottolenghi. In case you've watched Masterchef Australia and stuff, you might be familiar with him. He's this really humble, non-pretentious, sweet, Israeli British man who does, so a lot of his dishes are based in Middle Eastern cuisine, but he's like really globalized them. And it's just such simple but beautiful food, you know, because chefs often tend to be very pretentious. They feel like the more complicated the ingredient, the more number of ingredients, the harder to pronounce the name, the better the food. Whereas he is just so refreshing in his take on food that I really enjoy it. But there's actually another chef called Asma Khan, who is also a lawyer turned chef. Except she made the shift at the age of 50 after she completed a PhD. I actually had the great honor of watching her live last year when she visited Delhi at like a book event of hers, where she explained how the day she submitted her PhD, she decided she's done with law and she's now going to be a chef. And the reason I find her so inspiring is not just because we have similar origin stories, but because she believes very heavily in like her social impact. So she's based in UK, right? She's like born and raised in India, but moved to UK in her adulthood. And she lives in London and she has a restaurant there called Darjeeling Express. And all of her employees are immigrant women or like refugee women. And she even ran like a cafeteria mess kind of thing in a Yazidi camp, refugee camp. So she's all about, you know, giving back. And I find that so incredibly inspiring because that's why I got into law in the first place, you know, because back then I was so idealistic and I was all about, you know, making positive social change. And just because I'm no longer in law, I realize doesn't mean that I can't still potentially in the future make a positive social change.
Correct. Yeah.
Would you think cooking requires from a person? Like, what are the skill sets that would traditionally make up a good cook? Like, what are the ingredients that go into making a good cook?
So honestly, in case you've watched Ratatouille, anyone can cook. Okay. It's a very
I've tried
basic
cooking before and I would like to disprove that theory completely.
I mean, honestly, it's a very basic life skill that I feel, especially during the lockdown, a lot of us have sort of unlocked our inner chefs. But in terms of being like a great cook or being a good chef, I would say requires a few more skills beyond just, you know, the basics. So definitely patience is something you need, whether you're a good cook or a bad cook. Just to cook, you require patience to some degree. And then also, I feel like as a chef, something that I learned in culinary school, which is so valuable, is, you know, the science behind cooking, which is also so important. I spent several months of culinary school literally studying what looked like high school chemistry, okay? Because there's so much that goes into it that people don't realize. And, you know, precision, and attention to detail. These are the sort of things one would need to be a great cook or a good chef, apart from what you need just to cook per se.
Got it.
Okay. And what about things like variety, the initiative to experiment with new dishes or new cuisines? Is that something that, you know, or should a cook stick to what they're good at?
I am very jack of all trades, and that is something that I would apply to food as well. I think it's great to deep dive into one cuisine, but if you are closing yourself to other world cuisines or other, even just Indian cuisines, you know, I feel like you're just depriving yourself. And, you know, in terms of experimenting, there are these schools of thought on like authenticity versus experimentation. And I am of the firm belief that nothing is authentic. Okay. In that, you know, so I'm from Hyderabad. Okay. So there's so much debate on Hyderabadi, authentic Hyderabadi biryani, right?
Yeah.
But if you go from house to house in Hyderabad, they all prepare biryani differently. Or if you were to take what is considered authentic biryani today and compare it to what was being prepared 100 years ago,
would be different.
Who are we to decide, you know, which one is more authentic? So I feel like it's so important to keep experimenting. But I do tend to be a bit of a purist sometimes, in the sense, you know, I'll eat at some like Indian restaurant, I mean like a restaurant in India, which is serving, say, Italian food or Mexican food, and I look down upon it and be like, what have they done to the cuisine, you know? So I feel like you have to draw a line at some point. Like butter chicken pasta to me
that sounds awesome.
is incorrigible, and like you should be sent to jail for it, sort of thing. But short of something that outrageous, if it works, great, like successful experiment, I guess.
To be fair, if you actually combine different food items, there will be an audience for it. Like I never thought pineapple and pizza go together, but here we are today, right? Like, I mean, it's like an actual debate for people.
Sure.
So,
but I don't like
it's so subjective. I don't either.
I don't like that.
But like it's so subjective, you know, like the three of us could taste the exact same thing and have such wildly different opinions on the same thing.
Correct.
So I feel like that's where we sort of need to realize that there's no such thing as wrong food, you know, it's just so subjective.
Okay, we could sincerely debate that point for eternity. There is such a thing.
Okay, so Pragati, like almost immediately after graduating from law school, you chose to pursue the culinary arts. So didn't you think that you should have given law some time, or was it a decision that you made because you knew that this was what you wanted to do? Like basically you just decided to abandon law and get into the chef being kind of get into that cooking and all. So how did it came by?
So, yeah, I mean, technically, yes, I really didn't give law much of a shot, in that within 2 years of graduating from law school, I had joined culinary school. And 2 years, like in the legal field, is nothing, because people literally practice law into their 90s and stuff like that, right?
So but did you intern somewhere, or did you?
I did. So in the course of like both law school and post-law school, so I had interned, like I did an internship in criminal law with Rebecca John. I did an internship in Bangalore in IT law, because there was a time when I got super into like net neutrality and stuff like that. And then after graduations, I interned briefly in this place called Nyay, which is associated with Vidhi. But then after that, the longest job I had actually was at Common Cause, where I was doing research, and I was sort of drafting the PILs and stuff on a lot of very interesting subjects. I worked on issues like generic drugs, rights of domestic workers. Back then, the national anthem case in the movie theaters was really big. And, you know, I did a lot of work on Aadhaar, on privacy and stuff like that. So I sort of dipped my feet in the legal field, and, you know, I felt it out. And there were a lot of things I loved about it. There were a lot of things that bothered me, that got to me. I got to see you know, up close and personal, how civil courts tend to function. And there were a lot of like the practices that they tend to follow to get things going that really bothered me, you know. And for me, what just happened was, with time, I was just sort of losing interest in law. Like I was feeling disillusioned, because like I was saying earlier, I entered with very starry eyes, you know, changing the world. And I was all about human rights. And, you know, I was like, we're going to fix the system. And then you get into the system and you're like, the system is going to change you long before you are able to make a dent in the system. And then on the side, like I said, like the food thing was just sort of growing and growing and growing. And actually the decision to leave law and join food wasn't even mine. It was my mother who really sort of pushed me, because she was seeing how unhappy I was in the legal field. And she saw how anytime I was excitedly, animatedly talking about anything, it was all about food. Like I would never talk about my job with any kind of excitement. And she was like, there's something wrong with this picture. And she very seriously asked me one day, what are you thinking about your future? And I told her, you know what, Ma, I think I'll just stick it out in the legal field for like another 10, 15 years, make some money, and then retire like at 40 and open a restaurant, because I think that's what will bring me happiness. And her point was, how do you know that you're going to live to 40? So if this is something you want to do, if you want to get into the culinary field, do it now. So she's the one who gave me the confidence to quit law. I mean, it's not easy to quit, like, this very stable field where that, you're going to get money. You might not get it at first, but you're going to get money eventually. And join this field that is considered very, like unstable and not like a very respected profession in India. And going abroad and studying in culinary school was also very expensive. So the only reason I was able to do any of this was because of the support and encouragement of my parents. That's how it happened.
So now that you told us how you got here, what is it in the long term that you're aiming at? So what's the end goal? What's the final play here? Are you looking at opening a restaurant? Do you want to be a chef within a great restaurant? You have a brand in mind that you'd like to work with, or perhaps the kind of social work that you mentioned you were inspired by?
So it's a little bit of a combination of the first and third. So I'm currently working in this very prestigious brand, and I'm doing, and as Drishti mentioned, I'm the quality manager, but also the R&D chef. So like, in terms of developing new recipes and stuff like that. So that's my current. But in terms of long-term plans, it is to open my own restaurants.
Oh, in different cuisine, or are all these part of the same?
That's nice.
Because I have so many ideas. Like I'm bursting with ideas, not just for like dishes and stuff, but concepts and like different dining experiences. Having got a bit of exposure in Europe and America and seeing all the really interesting things people are doing, I would love to capture some of those different kinds of experiences and offer that to an.
So you say concepts and experiences, right? You're not talking about food. You're talking about something else in terms of the ambience or the environment.
Sure. I mean, I'm talking about everything, all of it together. The food has to be important, because at the end of the day, it would be a restaurant. But I feel like, I mean, I'm sure you can relate. This past 1 year, you had to do a lot of ordering in and eating at home, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the same as the experience that you get at, like really nice restaurants. I believe a lot in, a bit of food theater. So at this place that I worked before L'Opera, it was part of the Olive group of restaurants. It's called Ek Bar. And it was in Defense Colony. It's actually a very frequent hangout of lawyers. I used to go there when I was a lawyer working in Defense Colony, so I'd go hang out there after work. So when I was there, the head chef over there gave me the opportunity to contribute a couple of dishes to the menu. So I helped kind of create this dessert, which I'm going to describe to you because I want to explain the theater behind it. So it was called an Old Monk Flambéed. Dark chocolate ganache. Okay, so we basically did a baked dark chocolate ganache, so like a flourless chocolate cake kind of thing. We had a bit of like mascarpone cream on it. We had a masala chai cookie, and I would go to the table, like when I would take that dish out in one hand, with the other hand I would have a little glass of Old Monk, which I would go to their table and light it on fire and then pour it over their dessert. So the flavors are dark chocolate, Old Monk, and masala chai. So it's like a great, very Indian fusion dessert. And it was just so like all the guests loved that little drama of the fire and all of that. So that's something I really enjoy, sort of playing with the senses, not just visually, like even sound or smell. These are things you can play with on a plate, and I love doing that. So in terms of concepts and experiences, it's not just the food itself, it's the way the food is presented and the ambience that it's presented in.
So
which
the
is
end
kind
goal is having a number of different restaurants with different concepts, right?
Yeah.
Along with the social aspect to it as well.
yeah.
Yes. So in the social aspect, like to be inspired by Asma Khan, I definitely want to sort of give employment opportunities to people who would otherwise struggle with it for various reasons. Like in UK, of course, immigrants and refugees are, not treated the same as citizens over there. Here we have other issues. Here we have caste issues and, communal issues and stuff. So whatever I can do to sort of empower members of a certain oppressed community, I would love to go out of my way to do. And another issue I believe very deeply in is the environment. So in terms of sustainable practices, like in the food industry honestly is a big culprit in terms of promoting unsustainable practices like importing food. Like a few years ago when everyone was obsessed with quinoa, or currently when everyone's constantly purchasing avocados without like thinking about where it's sourced from. If it's fairly locally sourced, that's great and that's sustainable. But if you're importing Hass avocados, that kind of thing, those are practices I would love to discourage and just not practice, in my own enterprises, where I would love to use fairly locally sourced ingredients, but create international dishes with them. It's not hard to sort of try to recreate their cuisines using a lot of our ingredients. So that's one aspect. And the other is food waste. You work in the back of the house of any restaurant and you'll see the insane amounts of food that just go into the garbage. And it absolutely breaks my heart. So where I work right now, La Pera, there too, there's a lot of food waste that's generated, but the really great thing is they have tied up with a few NGOs.
That's really nice.
Where, for instance, our bread, so we only keep our breads on the shelves for one day. The second day, it's all returned and it should go into the garbage. Instead of going into the garbage, we donate it to these NGOs that work with stray dogs. Really so they co-feed these breads to stray dogs. And, like pastries that are a day old, they go to other kinds of NGOs where they're distributed to people who don't otherwise have access to food. So, so that's the kind of thing I would really like to promote.
That's really cool.
Nice.
That's really cool.
That's nice.
There's a cafe in Bombay, I think it's called the Third Eye, if I'm not wrong. You should look at them because they hire only members of the transgender community, for example, because they find a lot of difficulty getting employment other places.
Sure, of course.
It's called the Third Eye. I'm not sure where exactly it is in Bombay, but it's pretty famous and it's got a lot of credit from the public for what they do. So maybe that's something that could give you ideas as well.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. When I visit Bombay, I'll definitely look up that cafe, even if it's super out of the way. Because we should do what we can to encourage these kind of enterprises.
Yeah, certainly. Doing something different takes a lot of guts, and it's really good that people do that.
Definitely.
That's nice. Yeah. I would say you still have that lawyer instinct in you. You want to bring some change, being a chef as well. That's great.
Yeah. That's not going away. A lot of times when I'm arguing with a colleague or explaining something, they're like, "You're such a lawyer." And I'm like, that doesn't go away.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay, so we are moving to the next section, which is our rapid fire questions. So be ready, Pragati. Okay.
Bracing myself.
Yeah. Okay, so which one dish can you cook or eat at any time whatsoever?
Pasta. Any form, in any kind, in any shape. Every day.
Do you have a favorite pasta type? Penne, fusilli, spaghetti?
I love stuffed pasta, so tortellini, ravioli, those kind of things. They're more interesting.
Okay. You mentioned you watched Masterchef earlier, so this will be our second question. Who would be your favorite Masterchef character?
Contestant. Marion.
Sorry?
Favorite Masterchef contestant, right? Would be Marion.
I mean from a judge perspective, actually. More from
among the judges. So I actually haven't watched the new season, which has different judges.
Sure.
But among those three older judges, I like Gary the best. I felt like he really knew his stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So which is your favorite pastry dish, like in terms of pastry, which you like the most?
Cheesecake. New York baked cheesecake.
Wow.
I'm very partial to the city that I studied in.
I'm telling you, after this one, I'm actually like ordering some pastry or something. Like seriously, after hearing so
Hearing
much
you
of
talk. Yeah.
seriously, now my mouth is like
Okay.
watering.
Question 4. You have been convicted of a crime, ironic since you're a lawyer, and you're going to go to prison, right? So, what is and this is your last night out on freedom, of freedom. So, you have the chance to go to one restaurant and one restaurant only. Which one would it be?
Honestly, this is my last night of freedom. I'm getting myself kebabs. I'm getting galauti kebab. I'm getting kakuri kebab. And
Is
I
there
would not go to a restaurant for that. I would go to the streets of Chandni Chowk.
That answers the question. All right. Okay. One lesson you took away from your time in law, both as studying and working.
Um, that's very interesting. So I more than a lesson, I feel like it's changed the way that I approach people or I approach problems. I sort of look at it all with a very lawyer gaze. So, I tend to really analyze people, I tend to analyze situations, and that's something that I find invaluable. I feel like everyone should be forced to get a legal education just so they can be like more logical and methodical with just everything in their lives. I feel like it's just made such a qualitative difference to me in that sense.
Okay, so this is basically kind of a scenario question. So, which ideal scenario would you pick?
I'm sorry. You guys just okay. You're back. You're back. So, I'm sorry. Yes.
No worries. So, which ideal scenario would you pick? You can eat whatever you like, how much ever you like, and never get unhealthy, or you can own a dream restaurant of your own choice.
Definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. I will eat whatever I want and then like go for Zumba, but I want that dream restaurant.
Nice.
All right. And the final question, what would be your all-time comfort food? The thing you eat when you're sad, when you're happy, when you're tired?
Here's where I really give away that I'm South Indian, because my all-time favorite comfort food would be rasam sadam.
Oh wow, okay, that is like as South Indian as it gets.
I was actually suspecting you'll say pasta again, so I was like, finally some Indian food again. So, yeah.
No, pasta is love, but like rasam sadam is my childhood, it's a comfort food.
All right, I think that wraps it up. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Pragati, for this. It was a lot of fun, and also really nice to hear how you inculcated that passion for cooking in your career and in your life, and taking a call that was absolutely risky, for sure, from going from law to the hospitality world. Yeah, I think that was crazy.
Here's hoping it pays out.
It will definitely. Yeah.
But thank you so much, people really like this.
Sorry, I was just saying thank you so much. This was so fun.
Yeah, we're glad you had fun, and thank you a lot for being on the call with us. Yeah,
absolutely. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much, Pragati. Thank you, Drishti. Hope to see you sometime soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks so much.